The story I'd like to read for you today is one that is an old story, and the name of it is Caps for Sale by Esphyr Slobodkina. And he writes, this is an old story that probably your mothers and your dads know, and probably even your grandpas and your grandmas. And it's about a time long ago when we had peddlers. Now, we aren't aware of peddlers today because we don't have them. But years ago, when people didn't have a lot of stores like we do, so then people would go round and round, maybe with a wagon and a horse, and have maybe groceries and maybe some gloves and hats and things like that, and would go around to the houses of people. And those were called peddlers. They would sell these things. Now, some people were not as wealthy to have a horse and a cart, and so they had to have a pack on their back. But the story that we're going to have today is about a peddler, and he didn't even have a cart. He didn't have a pack on his back. He didn't have anything, but he wanted to sell some caps. And so he piled them all on his head. You see them all up here? He put them on his head, and he went walking up and down the streets, calling and calling out, "Caps for sale." And this is the story. Once there was a peddler who sold caps, but he was not like an ordinary peddler carrying his wares on his back. He carried them up on top of his head. First he had on his own checked cap, then a bunch of gray caps, and then a bunch of brown caps, and then a bunch of blue caps, and up at the very top, he had red caps. He walked up and down the streets, holding himself very straight so as not to upset his caps. And he went along, and as he called, "Caps, caps, caps for sale, 50 cents a cap." One morning, he couldn't sell any caps. He walked up the street and he walked down the street calling, "Caps, caps for sale, 50 cents a cap." But nobody wanted any caps that morning. Nobody wanted not even a red cap. So he began to feel very hungry, but he had no money for lunch. "I think I'll go for a walk in the country," said he. And he walked out of town slowly, so not to upset his caps. And he walked for a long time until he came to a great big tree. "That's a nice place for a rest," thought he. And he sat down very slowly under the tree and leaned back little by little against the tree trunk so as not to disturb all those caps on his head. Then he put up his hand to feel if they were all straight. First with his own checked cap, and then the gray caps, then the brown caps, then the blue caps, and up at the very top, all those red caps. They were all there. So he went to sleep. And he slept for a very long time. And when he woke up, he felt refreshed and rested. But before standing up, he felt with his hand to be sure his caps were all in the right place. All he felt was his own checked cap. He looked to the right of him, no caps. He looked to the left of him, no caps. He looked to the back of him, no caps. He looked behind the tree, no caps. Then he looked up into the tree, and what do you think he saw? On every branch sat a monkey, and on every monkey was a gray or a brown or a blue or a red cap. And the peddler looked up at those monkeys, and the monkeys looked down at the peddler, and he didn't know what to do. Finally, he spoke to them. "You monkeys, you," he said, shaking a finger at them, "you give me back my caps." But the monkeys just shook their finger back at him and said, "Zit, zit, 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 zit." Then that made the peddler angry, so he shook both his hands at them and said, "You monkeys, you give me back my caps." But the monkeys all shook both their hands at him and said, "Zit, zit, 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 zit." And now he felt quite angry, and he stamped his foot and he said, "You monkeys, you give me back my caps." But the monkeys only stamped their feet back at him and said, "Zit, zit, 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 zit." By this time, the peddler was really very, very angry, so he stamped both his feet and shouted, "You monkeys, you give me back my caps." But the monkeys only stamped both of their feet back at him. Zit, 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 zit. And he became so angry that he pulled off his own cap and threw it on the ground and began to walk away. And then each monkey pulled off his cap. And all the gray caps, and all the brown caps, and all the blue caps, and all the red caps, all came flying down out of the tree. So the peddler picked up his caps and put them back on his head. First his own checked cap, then the gray caps, then the brown caps, then the blue caps, and the red caps at the very top. And slowly, very slowly, he walked back into town calling, "Caps! Caps for sale! 50 cents a cap!"